So guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe, all keeping well in this difficult climate that we're currently in. Guys, this video today, I want to respond to a YouTuber actually, who I have a lot of respect for, who I think is one of the OG boxing YouTubers, probably in my opinion, the best boxing YouTuber. To do what we do, like talk about boxing fights, breaking them down, analyzing the different situations going on in boxing, the boxing news. Hatman Strikes. I think he's one of the best boxing YouTubers. I think he's brilliant. I think his knowledge that he has, his in-depth knowledge that he has, not just of this era, but of so many eras. I think this is a guy that's been a hardcore boxing fan before the 1990s. So this is a guy, before I get into the video, this is a guy that has a lot more knowledge about boxing than I do. He has so much knowledge, especially about the heavyweight division, where, you know, I've listened to him and 90% of the time I always agree with what he said, what he says. And I've actually learned a lot from him watching his videos. This is a guy that's like, I think been doing videos over a decade now. And I've learned a lot from his videos. Like I said, agree to most of the things that he says. He's a brilliant YouTuber. And like I said, I think he's the best. He's the best in terms of the knowledge that he has. And I think he doesn't push an agenda. He has a non-biased opinion. However, he made a few comments today in his video, which I don't agree with, I disagree with. But again, by no means am I making this video to kind of call him out or nothing, because like I said, my boxing knowledge is nowhere near the knowledge that this guy has. I think his knowledge is on another level. He's been watching boxing a lot longer than me. And he's a lot older than me as well. I'm only 28 and I'm pretty sure Hatman must be in his late 30s or early 40s. He has so much, that's why he's been watching boxing a lot longer. And I think he's also competed at amateur level. You know, I learned a lot of boxing, you know, talking to Tony McKenzie, who was a former British light welterweight champion, who I actually trained with. But Hatman, I actually think, has been an amateur himself, or he's boxed. So and that's why when he breaks fights down, you can see that he has a lot more knowledge than other YouTubers, because he's actually done it himself. So he can actually talk about the sport from a technical point of view, because he's actually done it himself. But he made a few comments today about the fact that he said that everybody knows that I'm an Amir Khan fan. I've always followed Amir Khan, and he was one of the reasons why I got into watching boxing. Hatman made a few comments saying that Amir Khan was never elite, or he said something like he was a short period. He may have been elite for a short period. But how, you know, he was basically talking about, you know, Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum going back and forth with one another, and, you know, about this pay-per-view situation where Bob Arum's slagging Hearn off, saying that, you know, Hearn's putting on all this, Hearn and Sky are putting on these pay-per-views, and they shouldn't be pay-per-views. Usyk, Chisora, Dillian White, Povetkin, these are fights that shouldn't be pay-per-view. And then Hatman said, well, you know, Arum put on Khan and Crawford as a pay-per-view, and Khan was past his best, which I totally agree with. He was past his best, and he goes that how good was Khan anyway, even in his prime? He was never elite in his, that's what Hatman said. I think he said he was never elite in his opinion. You know, he had a brief period where he was, I think he said he may have been elite a brief period. He said something like that, but basically saying that he didn't think that Amir Khan was an elite fighter. I've got to respectfully disagree, if I'm honest with you. On two reasons why I disagree is because I think, firstly, to come to Amir Khan about him not being elite, I think Amir Khan was a former unified light welterweight champion. Amir Khan was vulnerable. He had his weaknesses. We know that. You know, if you caught him with a good shot, he could go over. Hatman also mentioned he's always been chinny, which he's right. He has been chinny. But Amir Khan also had some incredible wins at world level. Amir Khan's beaten 10 or 11 former world champions, right? And listen, you can always dissect someone's resume and say, oh, well, he fought this guy, he was washed up. But if you look at some of the wins that Amir Khan had at world level, like he destroyed Paulie Malignaggi, who was a former 2-weight world champion. You know, Amir Khan dismantled Paulie Malignaggi. Paulie Malignaggi years later went up and won a world title at welterweight. Yes, it was against Senchenko, who wasn't anything special, but nevertheless, still won a world title at welterweight. Zab Judah was a 2-weight world champion. Zab Judah was another great fighter. Amir Khan absolutely destroyed Zab Judah. And if Hatman says that, you know, his elite to him is Lomachenko, Canelo, Crawford, Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, these are the kind of guys that he considers elite, then 100% I agree with Hatman that Amir Khan is not in that category of fighters. He's not as good as those guys, you know, because those guys are not as vulnerable as Khan, and they're exceptional. Look at what they've done. Look at their resumes. I'd agree with that. But if he was to say that Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, you know, Danny Garcia, guys at that level are elite, then Amir Khan was also elite. You know, Amir Khan had some incredible wins. And it's not just the fact that Amir Khan had wins at world level. It was the fact that he beat guys easily, some guys easily at world level. Like Devin Alexander was a great fighter, very good fighter. And Amir Khan completely washed him. Zab Judah was a great fighter. Yes, he might have not been the best when Amir Khan fought him. But who beats Zab Judah like that? Zab Judah years later fought Danny Garcia and the fight went 12 rounds and it was like a life and death fight for Danny Garcia. It was a very tough fight for him. Amir Khan completely washed him every second of every round and stopped him. You know, Devin Alexander got bashed up. Malignaggi got bashed up. These aren't rubbish bums. We're talking about world level champions, 2-weight world champions here, that Amir Khan just completely wiped out. The performances were emphatic. Collazo, again, he was a world champion, a former world champion. And Amir Khan just completely wiped him out. Yes, there are certain fights, like the Danny Garcia fight, that hurt Amir Khan's legacy, for sure. You know, he shouldn't have lost to Danny Garcia. Amir Khan was in my opinion, far better and far more talented. But again, for me, Amir Khan, and Hatman used to make points about Khan, which I totally agree with, that he was very impulsive. And you could easily get into under Amir Khan's skin. And Amir Khan was a type of fighter where if you get under his skin, you're giving yourself more of a chance to win, because he would go away from the game plan. And in the Garcia fight, he was just fighting toe to toe with him, if I'm honest with you. And I think that was down to the fact that I don't think he rated Garcia. I think he thought he would blow Garcia away. And Garcia, obviously over the years, as we saw, had a great chin. And he could punch a little bit. But I don't think Danny Garcia's punching power was out of this world. I just think it was a case where Amir Khan got caught with a great shot because he was standing and trading with him, because he didn't respect Garcia. I do think the rematch would have been different if they had fought in a rematch. You know, I don't think Danny Garcia was a bigger puncher than Maidana, but the difference was Amir Khan went into that Maidana fight with fear, and he knew how dangerous Maidana was. I don't think he thought Danny Garcia was that dangerous at all. He thought he would easily beat Danny Garcia, and it didn't work out that way. But the difference between Amir Khan and some of the top fighters that we know of today is that those guys are complete, and Amir Khan had mistakes. He also was impulsive and made mistakes at key moments in certain fights. But however, I don't think you can take away from what Amir Khan achieved in his career. I do think he gets a lot of disrespect. And I do think that people don't give Amir Khan the credit he deserves for his career, which has been fantastic. People always love to talk about Amir Khan's chin. You know, I have so many people that always love to talk about Amir Khan's chin. But with that same chin, he defeated 11 or 10 former world champions. Calzaghe, who's one of the greatest British fighters of all time, only defeated 10. Amir Khan achieved more than 90% of British fighters. He achieved more than 90% of British fighters, but all people want to talk about is his chin. And the fact that he's chinny. What does that say about the other fighters that didn't even become world champions or didn't become unified champions? What does that say about their careers and not beating or have the resume that Khan had, right? What does that say about their careers? Because Amir Khan, with the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities that he had, yet still achieved so much. But yeah, I don't really feel like he gets the credit and respect. I don't know why. I just think that people, he gets a lot of hate. But I want to come to the second point, which is about, Bob Arum saying that, Usyk, Chisora shouldn't be pay-per-view. And Hatman saying that, well, why was Khan Crawford? Firstly, I think Hatman will agree himself that Khan's a way better fighter than Derek Chisora, right? And Amir Khan, at one point in his career, right, Hatman said it himself, was a very good fighter. He doubts how good he was from what he said. But Derek Chisora's got 9 losses, never been a world champion, right? And Hatman said himself, even at the time when Khan was going to fight Crawford, he said, I wouldn't be shocked if Khan beats Crawford. He has the talent and ability to beat Terence Crawford. This is Hatman, I'm pretty sure, in a video that Hatman did when that fight was before the fight. I think before the fight, on the week of the fight, Hatman made a video and he said it wouldn't be a massive upset to me. I wouldn't be shocked if Khan beats him because Khan has got the talent and ability to beat Terence Crawford. This is Hatman said this. However, I do doubt whether Chisora has the ability to beat Usyk. Yes, with heavyweights, it only takes one punch. But Derek Chisora, in my opinion, and I like Derek Chisora. I think Derek Chisora is a tough guy. He'll come and bring it. But I don't think Derek Chisora's got the ability to beat. Now, yes, if he lands one, that could go with anyone. Anyone could land one and potentially knock somebody out. But I don't think he has the ability. I don't think that fight's a competitive fight. I think Chisora's I think Usyk's gonna win comfortably if Derek doesn't land anything. Right? Amir Khan was past his best when he fought Crawford, and that's why the fight played out the way it played out. But he was still a big name, right? Amir Khan's a superstar. He's a lot more well known in this country than Derek Chisora. You could walk the streets in the UK and there'd be very few people who don't know who Amir Khan is. I don't think you can say the same about Derek Chisora. And I'm not just having a dig at Derek Chisora, even Dillian Whyte Povetkin. Even Dillian Whyte, for example. Dillian's never been a world champion, or he's never achieved what Amir Khan's achieved in the game. So, again, I think it's a bit of a difference between Amir Khan and Terence Crawford and Dillian Whyte and Povetkin and Derek Chisora and Usyk. I'll put it this way. Even in terms of popularity and stardom, Amir Khan's not very liked in the UK. Although he's very well known and everybody knows who he is, he's not liked, right? But Amir Khan, right, could have fought if he had fought Kell Brook, Eddie Hearn, this is not me saying this, Eddie Hearn said himself that fight could do over 1 million pay-per-view buys or about 1 million pay-per-view buys. Amir Khan would have been the main attraction in that fight. I'm not saying Kell Brook wouldn't have bought something, because he would have. He was world champion and he's also known, not as much as Khan, but Khan would have been the A-side in the fight. I think everybody would agree with that. He would have been the main attraction of that fight. Derek Chisora and Dillian Whyte, is there any fight that they could be involved in, right, where they're the main attraction, where they're the A-side of the fight, where they could potentially do 1 million pay-per-view buys? I don't think they can. I don't think there's anywhere close. I think Dillian Whyte's highest pay-per-view was at 300,000-400,000. But again, Amir Khan spent most of his career in America. He didn't fight in the UK. Maybe that's why a lot of the British fight fans went against him. And listen, Amir Khan at times had said something where people think he's very delusional, which, I can see why. But at the same time, this is a guy that's achieved a lot. He's achieved a lot. We're not talking if we're going to respect Dillian Whyte and Derek Chisora, and I do respect them because I feel they've done great, but they're not as good as Amir Khan in terms of ability, and they haven't achieved as much as him in boxing as amateur or pro. So, and I don't think they're as well known as him. I definitely know they're not as well known as him. So I feel like in terms of Amir Khan not being elite, I disagree with that. And also Amir Khan's a lot more well known. And I get it that that fight was 4 o'clock in the morning when people, was it that big? Amir Khan was past his best. People thought that Crawford was going to beat Khan. Yes, I get all of that. But in terms of, I think Amir Khan was elite. If I'm honest, I think it depends on what you consider elite. Like I said, if you think Canelo, Crawford, Mayweather, Pacquiao and Lomachenko, that's what you call elite, then yes, Amir Khan doesn't fit in that category. And Hatman's 100% right. But if you're calling Spence, Porter and all those guys elite, then Thurman, Garcia and all those guys elite, then you have to say Amir Khan fits in that category. If you want to dissect somebody's resume and want to trash it, it's not hard to do. You could do the same with Joshua. You know, who's he really beat? A washed up Klitschko, you know, Parker, who did he really beat? You know, he's not, you can go through anybody's resume and trash it, but I don't really like to do that. I really like to look at it that, look how many world champions he's beat. Look how many, I just don't like to trash people's resume because to win at world level is difficult enough. To beat some of the names that Amir Khan beat, like Zab Judah, and bash him up the way he did, you know, you just don't do that if you're not a good fighter, you know. And yes, Judah might not have been at his best, but when Yard fought Kovalev was past his best, but Yard got knocked out. So what that shows is that Yard wasn't as good. And listen, I'm a massive fan of Yard. I like Yard, but he didn't beat Kovalev. Yet Kovalev wasn't at his best. So if you're being pumped up and hyped up, when the time comes, you won't be able to win at world level, and that's what we saw with Yard. That doesn't mean Yard ain't gonna go on to become a world champion. He may well do, but he wasn't good enough at that particular point to beat Kovalev. Yet Kovalev was nowhere near his best. So again, this is not me doing a video to kind of have a go at Hatman, because like I said, he knows way more about boxing than I do. And if he was to see this video, which I'm not sure he will, because his channel's a lot more successful than mine, and he's, like I said, his knowledge is a lot greater than mine. I just didn't agree with some of the things that, I didn't just agree with that point that he said. But again, like I said, this is a guy that has a lot of boxing knowledge. This is a guy that's a lot more knowledgeable than me about boxing. He's been watching boxing a lot longer. And I respect his opinion, and I've been watching his channel for years, and 90% of the time I agree with everything he says, you know, on the state of British boxing. And one thing Hatman says that I like, that, you know, he cares about the fighters, and I'm the same. You know, the fighters are the most important people in this sport, not the promoters. The promoters can be quite selfish. They're all about themselves. You know, Kell Brooks is a great example of a time where he needed Eddie Hearn and Sky to back him for this Crawford fight, and it doesn't look like they are. But I feel like the fighters need to take, you know, the initiative in their own hands, and do what the best is for their career. And Hatman's always said that. So fair play to him. You know what? Hatman's got a great channel, and I think he's done great. He's been like an OG on this YouTube game, where for me, he's the best. So by no means am I doing this video to kind of, you know, to call him out on nothing. It's nothing that. I just thought I wanted to respond to what he said, because I just didn't agree with it. I think Amir Khan gets a lot of, I think a lot of people disrespect. And I'm not saying what Hatman said is disrespectful, because it's not, because he didn't say anything disrespectful. I just think that Amir Khan was elite. But again, I don't know what Hatman considers elite. If Hatman thinks Mayweather, Pacquiao and Lomachenko, Crawford, that's what he calls elite, and Canelo, then Amir Khan doesn't sit in that category. We all know that. But it just depends on what we consider elite. But again, that's just my take on it. Again, I just think that Amir Khan doesn't really get the credit he deserves. I think he deserves a lot more credit. And actually, Hatman in the past has said himself that he feels that Amir Khan doesn't get the credit he deserves. But again, I don't know what he meant when he was saying that. Maybe he was, you know, just having a dig at Arum. I don't know what Hatman was trying to get at. I think what he was trying to say is that, you know, that fight wasn't that great a pay-per-view, and Bob Arum didn't mind putting that on pay-per-view, and he's right. But I do think still Khan and Crawford's a lot bigger than Usyk, Chisora, just because of the fact that Khan was a great fighter at one point in his career. I'm not sure Chisora ever was. And that's not hating on Chisora. That's just stating he was never a world champion and he's got quite a few losses on his record. So yeah, that's just my take on it. Leave your thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And guys, I'll see you guys. Oh yeah, guys, make sure to please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.